Hi, my name is Mark Black. In this video, we're going to look at the installation changes to IBM Spectrum LSF Suite 10.2. Specifically, we're going to look at the changes from 10.2.0.0 to 10.2.0.6. So this is part of a series of videos, and there's all different topics here. You can take a look at those, and they'll give you information about how to use LSF Suite 10.2. They'll talk about different installation options, scaling up, scaling down. And in this video, we're going to look at the new enhancements that have been added to 10.2.0.6. Okay, so what are we going to look at? Well, I'm going to tell you what's in this particular version. This is also released as a fixed pack as well. We'll see what are the versions of LSF as well as the add-ons, and I'll talk a bit about the enhancements that we've made to the installation. Alright, let's start off by looking at what's in LSF Suite 10.2.0.6. So this is actually being released as a fixed pack, but you have to understand that fixed pack is actually a fully installable version of LSF Suite. It includes all of the RPMs necessary to install and upgrade LSF Suite, as well as updates to the playbooks. It contains all of the iFixes prior to the release of 10.2.0.6, and it's all undergone pretty extensive testing to make sure that the integration and all of the pieces work well together. Alright, let's look at the versions that are in 10.2.0.6. So several components have been refreshed, and you will recall that LSF Suite is available in 3 different editions. Actually 4 if you count the Community Edition. You have the Enterprise Edition, which has no limits, no node limit, no job limit, and full multi-cluster capabilities, along with full license scheduler capabilities. You have the HPC edition, which is limited to 1024 nodes and 250,000 jobs. It also includes Data Manager and Process Manager, and those are 10.1.0.6, and I think Process Manager, oh yeah, it's 10.2.0.6. And of course you have the LSF Suite Workgroup Edition. This is limited to 128 nodes and 25,000 jobs. So in here we have LSF, and it's LSF 10.1.0.6. You have the Application Standard, which is 10.2.0.6, Explorer, which is 10.2.0.6, and Platform MPI 9.14, and that's the x86 only edition. You have Spectrum MPI, which is 10.1.1. And you have the option of using a Spectrum Cluster Foundation. So those are the 3 editions of LSF Suite, along with the versions of LSF and the add-ons that are included in these offerings. Alright, let's get right into it and look at what are the installation enhancements that we have in 10.2.0.6. So we've added a new role, and this role is for monitoring Spectrum scale. We've changed the NFS installation and enhanced that a bit. We've added some new install and reinstall options, and we've also included the IBM HTTP server as part of the installation bin file. So let's go into a little bit more detail. So we've added a new role to the installation. So before you had the LSF Masters role, which provided all the processes needed to make this machine an LSF master host. You had the LSF server role, which was a subset of the LSF master role, and you used this to turn a machine into a machine that's able to run workload. You had the LSF client role, which allowed you to submit jobs to the cluster, and this machine didn't actually run any jobs. You had the GUI host, or GUI hosts, sorry, and these are the machines that are running the GUI components that you can log into and interact with. You have the DB host, where this is the machine that's hosting the database. And what we're adding in is this new one called GPFS IO Monitor. And this one is the machine, well, this is going to run on one of the hosts in the cluster, specifically one of your GUI hosts in the cluster. And this will perform the function of ingesting the spectrum scale data. And finally, you have the deployer. And the deployer, as you recall, is a machine that hosts the installation repository and Ansible playbooks for deploying the rest of the cluster, essentially. So what is the GPFS monitor role? Well, with LSF, you already know how much CPU and memory your job is consuming. Wouldn't it be really nice to also know how much I/O that job is consuming as well? So this new role allows us to collect data from spectrum scale, specifically the I/O data, and we can correlate that with specific jobs. So we can actually work out how much I/O activity a particular job is generating. So this role is installed on only one node per cluster, and it has to be installed on one of the GUI host machines. It's going to install this particular RPM here, and it requires the IBM JRE as well as the Elasticsearch for LSF. One thing to note, if your spectrum scale cluster is busy, this will create load on the host. So I would recommend using this as on say perhaps one of the secondary or tertiary GUI hosts. You may need some additional post-install configuration. By default, we have assumed that the cluster name is called, the spectrum scale cluster name is called GPFS1. If you need to change that, you'll need to go to this file here, opt IBM Elastic GPFS IO config GPFS join config.json file. In there you'll find GPFS1, and you'll just replace that with the name of the actual spectrum scale cluster, and then restart the LSFD service. So how would I use this? So here's an example. So I'm looking at a medium-sized cluster with perhaps 100 to 1,000 machines. And what I've done is I'm going to pick one of the machines, so perhaps my third LSF master. So this is like a backup LSF master host. I've also used that as the GUI host as well. And what I want to do is list that machine also as part of the GPFS IO monitor role. One thing to note is it's only on one machine, so you do have a single point of failure there. And the other thing is you will have to have spectrum scale installed on or at least the spectrum scale client installed on the rest of the nodes. Okay, let's switch now and look at the NFS installation enhancements. So you'll recall that this picture here shows the behavior for the NFS install for 10.2.0.0, so the previous edition. So you had a deployer machine, which I've drawn separately in this case, just for clarity. This deployer machine was responsible for generating the contents of the shared directory. So this machine installed or placed the binaries and configuration files for the LSF cluster into a shared directory. Then the LSF server and client role machines, they were using that directory to get all of their binaries and configuration. The LSF masters and the LSF masters and GUI host roles, they actually had a local install of all of the binaries, but they did get the configuration directories from the shared directory. So again, this is for 10.2.0.0. So now let's look at what we've done for 10.2.0.6. So what happens now is the LSF masters no longer install locally. What they will do is they'll act just the same as the LSF servers and clients. They will get their binaries and configuration from the shared directory. And optionally, you can revert back to the old behavior, and I'll show you that in just a second. So what are the implications of this change to the installation behavior? Well, pre 10.2.06 installs, you have the option of testing out iFixes on your secondary LSF master prior to installing on the rest of the cluster. So this was kind of convenient. So all of the LSF masters had the LSF core packages installed locally. So what you could do there is selectively update one of the LSF masters and evaluate, how is that iFix or FixPack performing on that machine. Now, with 10.2.06, you have the choice of choosing how those LSF masters are going to be installed. By default, the LSF masters, LSF servers, LSF clients are all going to use NFS for the LSF core files. And all of the LSF masters really won't install the core the core packages locally. So you do have the option of reverting back to the old way, and that's done by editing this file here on the deployer node. What you look for is a variable called LSF masters on local, and by default it's set to false. What you want to do is set that to true and then install your cluster. So you do have to change this before installing the cluster. If you had forgot to do that, unfortunately you would have to remove the masters and re-add them, or uninstall your cluster completely and then reinstall it. Okay, let's look at some of the other enhancements that we've made to LSF Suite 10.2.0.6. Okay, so say for example we had a cluster already set up, and well, things happen. Maybe we lose a box. It's gone down. The hard drive's crashed, or the motherboard's died, or maybe we want to expand the cluster and add in some new boxes. So how do we say add in a new server, or how do we replace a dead server? So let's look at the first case where we're going to replace, say, a dead LSF server or LSF client machine. It's pretty easy now. What you can do is you go to your deployer and just run the Ansible playbook -I LSF inventory, and then add in --limit, and then list the name of the machine that you want to replace, and then run the deploy playbook. That will install the software stack on that machine, or at least perform the RPM installations for an NFS install, and it'll start the daemons, and then boom, that machine, that dead machine, or that machine that you've replaced, now will join the cluster, and you'll see it up and running when you look at, say, a B host or LS host. One thing to note, the limit option, you cannot use that for replacing machine in the LSF masters or GUI host role. And that's because there are associated configuration files that need to be regenerated. So if it's in the master or GUI host, don't use this option. Now, if you're going to add in some new LSF server hosts or new LSF client machines, you can follow the same procedure essentially. So you just run your Ansible playbook. Of course, before running this, you have updated your LSF inventory file. And then what you will do is, with the limit option, you'll list all of those new machines. So that will install the software stack on those machines or provide the NFS support RPM. It will also update the cluster configuration file so that these machines, these newly added machines, are added into the configuration, and it will start the daemons. And again, you can't use the limit option for adding in new LSF masters or GUI hosts. You have to let it reconfigure the whole cluster, because there is actually configuration on the LSF servers that need to be regenerated. Okay, another enhancement we've made. So now, for example, if you started out with, say, a single LSF master and GUI host, and perhaps realize, hey, my cluster is growing in size, or I want to have an HA configuration, what you can do now is you can take one of your LSF server or client hosts and promote that to be, say, a secondary LSF master and, say, a secondary GUI host. Also, we have introduced the iFix rollback. In general, we would discourage users from using this, but we would really prefer that you contact our support people and they can help you resolve any problems. But we will provide this ability to roll back iFixes, and it's done by running the Ansible playbook -I LSF inventory, and the new playbook is called LSF Rollback Fix. It will prompt you and ask if you really, really want to roll back, and you can roll back one iFix at a time. Another change, so in the client host type, what we've done is we statically configure the LSF clients. So the server type is set to 0, so it's not a server. The model in the configuration file was set to exclamation, and the type was set to exclamation. So essentially, we were going to automatically determine it by running the lim daemon on there. But because this is a client, we don't do that. So what we've done is we have modified the playbook so that we will automatically set the client type in the configuration file. So it's statically configured. So now when you bsub from a client host, you don't have to specify that the type is all. Another thing that's included, we have a playbook that will list the versions of all of the packages on the machines. So you can use this to quickly check to see, what versions of which RPMs do I have installed on all of my hosts. So you run the Ansible playbook and -I LSF inventory, and then the playbook name is LSF list packages. It will run, and for each machine in the cluster, say for example here I have host 001, it's telling me the list, or giving me the list of all of the installed packages, and I can take a look and see which versions I have there. And just another note, so you can optionally integrate Kibana with LSF Suite. So there's actually a video demonstrating how to do it, as well as a page on DeveloperWorks. So this is an optional thing that you can add in there. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it will give you some better log analytics capabilities, as well as the ability to define your own dashboards. Okay, let's wrap everything up. So you've seen the new versions of the components that are in the LSF suite 10.2.0.6. You've seen that we've also added in a new spectrum scale monitoring role, and this allows you to associate the spectrum scale I/O activity to a particular job. And you've also seen the numerous installation enhancements. So for more information, you can follow this link here. And thank you. I hope you enjoyed that.